Guys, this story time I want to share with you is my true life story. It is not a made up story, it's not a story from the internet, it actually happened to me. I want to share with you guys a story time on how I thought my life was over. I thought this was the end of my life. I thought my life was finished. I thought it was over for me. So guys, I want to share with you people how I almost got the HIV virus. It was all my fault, and I think I'm finally ready to talk about it publicly for the first time. Before I get into the video, a quick disclaimer: this video is not in any way to stigmatize people living with HIV. It is not to make them feel bad or to insult them. It's just me sharing my own true life story, my own true life experience. Okay, I'm aware that when people hear that someone has HIV, the first thing that comes into their mind is that, oh, this person is irresponsible, oh, this person sleeps around, oh, this person is jumping from bed to bed, when we actually all know that there are different ways people can actually get the virus. Okay, so hey fam, welcome back to the channel. Ewoma here. Guys, in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a story time on how I almost got HIV. If you're interested, then keep watching. So guys, this actually happened almost 3 years ago. It happened in the year 2020 during my 1-year internship program. Okay, so if you're not sure of what an internship program is, in Nigeria, when you study a medical related course, I'm talking about courses like medicine, medical laboratory science, nursing, pharmacy, radiography, optometry, courses like that, you're required to do a mandatory 1-year program before you can now get your your final license, which you now use to practice. Okay, the license you get for that 1-year period is just your provisional license. It's just for that 1-year period of time. After that 1 year, it will expire. Okay, so during this 1-year program, you practicalize everything you were taught in school. No more sitting down in class to be writing and be listening to lecturer. You will be in the hospital working, and the good thing is that they will pay you while you are learning. So it's a wonderful experience for every medical student. Everybody looks forward to it because of the money and because of the experience. So I happened to do my 1-year internship program in a big teaching hospital in Nigeria. I won't mention the name of the hospital, sorry. So during this program, I went through my first lab, my second lab, there was no issue, and then I got to move to my third lab, which was the blood bank, because you have to move from department to department. The same thing in medicine, you move from gynecology department, you go to pediatrics, you go to emergency ward, like that. So I happen to work in the blood bank, and not sure of what blood bank is, just like the name implies, it is where all blood transactions are done. Okay, in the blood bank, that is where you go to donate blood, and that is where you go to get blood if you be needing blood transfusion. And I must mention that it's a criminal offense in Nigeria to actually buy blood or pay for blood. Okay, you cannot walk into the hospital and say, oh, I want to donate blood. You guys need to pay me, or say I need blood and I want to pay you guys. If you eventually go to the hospital to donate blood and you are paid anything or you are given anything, what you are given is a compensation. You can buy vegetables, buy fruits. Sometimes they even give these things to you. They give you malt, they give you milk, just for you to replenish your lost strength. And if you go to the hospital and you need blood and they ask you to pay any money, that money is for them to run tests to. It's not for anything. It's just for them to run tests to make sure that that blood they want to give to you is actually suitable for you or the patient that needs it. Nothing more than that. So on this particular day, I happened to work on a night shift. I was on night duty, and then we were 3 of us. I was the one doing the bleeding. Okay, I was the one that was going to be bleeding all the donors, and then my colleague would do the cross matching. Cross matching is just simply matching the blood to make sure that the blood of the donor and the recipient actually matches. Okay, nobody's just going to take blood from the blood bank and start transfusing somebody. No, nobody wants any negative reaction. Nobody wants any agglutination. Nobody wants anything like that. Okay, so my colleague was doing the cross matching while my other colleague was doing the preliminary test. Okay, so when someone comes to donate blood, some tests to be done to make sure that you're actually suitable for blood donation. They'll check your age. You cannot donate blood if you're less than 18 years and if you're above 60. In fact, once you're already 40 years, your chances of donating blood is already low. For the men, you understand. Once you're 50, you can collect your blood. But once you're above 55, nobody's going to collect your blood sample anymore because you're already old, you need blood more. Okay, then they'll check if you have HIV or syphilis, hepatitis. Basically check for any infections that can be transfused through blood. So they'll check for that as well. Then they'll check your packed cell volume, not PVCU. I know Nigerians right now, when you say P, the next thing they're expecting to hear is V and C. Not your permanent voter's card, but your packed cell volume, to make sure that you have enough blood to donate donate. For the men, usually in about 40% for you to be able to donate. Sometimes if it's 38, 39, they can, manage. It just depends on the severity of the case. This is not me trying to lecture you on, all this blood stuff. I'm just trying to, make you guys understand a little bit where I'm coming from and give insight to what happened that particular night where I thought my life was over. I thought I've ruined my life. I thought the worst has happened to me. Like this particular night, on my night call, a donor came into the blood bank and he wanted to donate blood for his wife that was scheduled to have a cesarean operation in a couple of days, but she was already in the hospital. So guys, we could have asked him to go back and come back the next morning, because this is night call. Night call is basically to attend to patients that are, inpatients, emergency and stuff like that. But the man said, he explained to us that he traveled from far to come and make this blood donation. He does not work in the States and he needs to go back to work. So we said, okay, we would collect your blood. Oh yeah, sit down. We collected the form from him. My colleague collected his blood samples and ran those tests on him, and he was good to donate. I need to state this clearly that the strip they use in most hospitals, which is the HIV strip, I don't know if some of you have seen it before. If I can find pictures of it, I will put it so that you guys can know what I'm talking about. That strip is just a rapid test. It takes about 15 minutes to get it done, okay? But guys, there's also another way to confirm if somebody truly has HIV, which is the ELISA method, okay? That method will actually confirm if somebody truly has HIV, because an HIV patient that is religiously taking his or her medications will have very low viral load, and the strip may not pick it up, okay? The strip may not, pick it up to show that this person actually has HIV. In fact, of recent, there is another way of checking if someone has HIV. I've forgotten what it's called. In fact, with this method, you can actually tell if the infection is an old one or it's a recent one. I think it's an old one. It shows 2 lines, or I can't really remember, but yes, every day there's new innovations here and there to make life easy for everybody. But on this particular day, we're using the strip, okay? And so when we checked this patient, we saw that he didn't have HIV, okay? So the next thing for me to do was take him to the bleeding room and bleed this donor. Guys, every time I take patients to the bleeding room, I get the same reaction. They are all scared, because if you see the needle used for bleeding, you say fear will catch you, okay? We usually use the 16 gauge needle for bleeding donors, and just in case you are like 16 gauge, isn't that low? No, guys. The needle used to collect your blood sample every time you go to the hospital is either a 21 gauge needle or a 23 gauge needle. So you can see the difference. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's actually a big needle. So the patient sat down, I talked to him, educated him on what I was about to do and the process that was about to happen. And I went on to bleed this patient. There was no issue. After bleeding him, I picked the blood bag. And guys, I also forgot to mention that part of the test we do when a donor comes is a blood group. We want to make sure that the blood group of the donor and the blood group of the recipient actually matches. Nobody wants to have any negative reaction. We all know that blood group O is a universal donor and can give blood to everybody. But people like blood group A, blood group B, those ones are selective donors. I'm not here to educate you guys again, as I mentioned. If you want to know more about blood group and blood donations, then maybe indicate in the comment section. I can answer those questions separately. After bleeding this donor, the next thing to do is to take the blood back to the blood bank to have it refrigerated, okay? Lift up the blood bag and break the needle from the blood bag. We usually do that with a surgical scissors, but I don't know what I was thinking. I was feeling like a professional. After all, this is what I do. Some nights I bleed 20 donors, 10 donors, 15 donors, as the case may be. So in my head, breaking this needle shouldn't be hard at all, and I proceeded to break the needle. Nothing happened, guys. I threw the broken needle into the sharp container and I wrapped the blood. After wrapping the blood, I looked down and I discovered that blood was dropping from somewhere, and I'm like, is it that the blood bag has a hole in it, or is it that maybe I mistakenly punctured the blood bag with the needle? If the blood bag has a hole in it, while I was bleeding the donor, I would have seen it. I would have known. No. After a while, I realized that the blood was actually coming from my hand. So guys, what had happened was that while I broke the needle, worst decision I made. After I broke the needle kind of like, the needle pierced my hand. So that was the blood that was dropping. So I quickly, asked the donor to go. If you have a needle prick in the hospital, you do not just cover the place. No, you allow it to bleed out, okay, so that if by any chance anything has entered that place, it will come out, okay. So I allowed it to bleed, and then I sterilized it, and then I bandaged it, and then I went back to the blood bank and I told my colleague, look at what has happened though. The first thing I should have done when that happened is to go and take a medication. Usually, that drug is given to people that have been exposed to the HIV virus. It's supposed to be a preventive drug, okay? So when you come to the hospital and say, oh, I think I may have been exposed to this virus, they immediately give it to you, and that solves the problem. But guys, I was scared. And the second thing is that this happened during night call, okay? If I needed this drug, I needed to go to the HIV unit to get this drug. And they've closed for the night, okay? They've closed for the night, and there's no way I could get this drug except till the next morning. I was like, my own is finished though. My own is finished. People cannot tell me anything. My colleague calmed me down. I was like, calm down, nothing will happen, don't worry. Nothing is going to happen to you. Of course, I was scolded. Why won't you, use the surgical needle you've been using? But, we had a long line of donors waiting. We're so busy issuing out blood, bleeding people, running tests. It was such a chaotic night. If you've ever been to the hospital at night, you know what I'm talking about. It is very chaotic a lot of times. So after working for the night, we went to the call room, which is where we usually go to rest or sleep. And while I was there, guys, I was just thinking. I'm very dramatic. I'm a very dramatic person. If you know me, you know. I'm always overthinking things. I was already thinking in my head how I'm going to call my boyfriend and tell him, sorry, this relationship is going to be over. I have HIV. Or how I'm going to, call my parents and tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I can no longer live with you guys. I have HIV. You see the stigmatization I'm talking about? That's literally what was playing in my head. I was already thinking of how I'm going to, be on the cover of newspapers for being stupid, the stupid scientist that, infected herself. I was just thinking, this is how my life would be. Will I need to be living on drugs? And these drugs, if you don't take it, it's an issue. They take these drugs every single day. I was just thinking, what kind of problem is this now? On top money. And guys, just guess what? The crazy part is that our hazard allowance as at the time was 5,000 naira. Yes, your doctors, your nurses, your pharmacists, every healthcare professional was earning 5,000 naira as a hazard allowance. You can imagine doctors, for example, because there was a case of a doctor that, was in the emergency ward and an accident victim was rushed in. And, it's an emergency. There's no time to say, oh, first of all, collect his blood sample, go and test for HIV and all that. So he just quickly started treating the patient. And while he was treating the patient, blood splashed on him. And they just continued working. It was later when the person's blood test results came back, they saw that this patient was actually HIV positive. Just imagine if this medical doctor had contacted the virus. Your hazard allowance is 5,000 naira. Your sorry is 5,000 naira. In the hospital get exposed to all manner of things every day. Hepatitis, COVID, different stuffs every day, and our hazard allowance is 5,000 naira. Whereas your senators, your governors, they are receiving hazard allowance of millions of naira for doing nothing, for just sitting down. Guys, please let us vote wisely. You go and collect your PVC, not PCV now. Go and collect your PVC. Let us vote wisely. Just thinking, God, on top of 5,000 naira, HIV. God. Morning came, I quickly ran home, had my bath, and I came back to the hospital. I quickly did a blood test, and it was negative, of course. But guys, in case you did not know, the incubation period for HIV virus is 3 months. Which is why a lot of times if you go to the hospital, maybe you suspect you have HIV, they will tell you to come back in 3 months time, which they believe that by then, if the virus is there, it has mature, and then it will now show. So they asked me to come back in 3 months time. I was like, hey, 3 months. It was not funny at all. That 3 months waiting period was one of the toughest ones in my life. See, I've had a couple of moments in my life where I thought this is the end for me, where I've been very scared, where I'm like, Jesus, what is going on? Where I'm panicking. An example of this period is taking a pregnancy test. You know when you don't want to be pregnant, and you have done the do, and you are taking the test, you know how you'll be panicking. But this particular experience tops the charts. From that moment, I was not myself anymore. Of course, I was more careful the next time I needed to bleed a donor. I never made that mistake ever again in my entire career. But the fact that I had to wait 3 more months before knowing my fate was crazy. And as for the drugs, you may wonder, so why didn't you take the medication? A lot of people have had very negative reports when they took those drugs. Some people reported that they had hallucinations. Some people complained of the extreme fatigue, and for me, I was just scared. See, let me not lie. The main reason I did not want to take that medication was that I was in denial. And thinking about it now, that was a very stupid thing to do. And that's what I was thinking, because that drug could literally have saved my entire life. But I was in denial. I was like, taking this drug is like admitting that this thing actually happened. And I was in denial. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't tell any of my friends about it. I didn't tell my family about it. The only people that knew about it were my colleagues in the hospital, and they all advised me to take this drug. But I was just in denial. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to accept that this happened to me. So I went home and I had to wait for 3 months. Guys, on the day I finally got to retake the HIV test, after taking the test, I stood there looking at the strip. I don't know, I was expecting to see those 2 lines which would show the test was positive, but thankfully after 15 minutes, just 1 line showed, and of course we all know 1 line means negative, and I was so happy. In fact, every day I look back at that moment, I am so happy, because what would I have told people? It's not like I even got my own from having sex, or I got my own from blood transfusion, but from a silly mistake that I made. I almost caused this for myself. It was a very traumatic time for me, but at the same time, I'm very happy that results ended up coming out as negative. So guys, that is the story of how I almost got HIV. Now I know better. In fact, now I advise people, if I even go to the hospital now and you want to collect my sample and you're not wearing a hand glove, I will remind you, please wear your hand glove. I now look out for other people as well. I look out for other professionals, because sometimes it may not be actually your intention of making this mistake, but it will just escape your mind. So guys, that is the story of how my life was almost torn apart by a wrong move that I made. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. If you've watched this point and you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, give me a huge thumbs up, leave me an encouraging message in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.